I always parked in a certain spot at my last job for 12 years that I was there. It was accessible to the public as it wasn't company parking, but they wanted us to park in the back of the lot so the closer spots could be available for customers. One day my spot's taken by a dark-tinted caddy, and I'm immediately pissed because everyone knows it's mine. It's morning shift, so 4 a.m., so it can't be one of the others because I know what they drive. So newbie, or maybe another employee from another shop in the plaza, is still there on my lunch break, and when I go home and the next day I come in at 1 p.m. till close. Around 9:30, and then also the next. Something about it really bothered me. Smelled wrong. Literally, it's the South and high summer, and who knows what's baking in there. My dad was a Marine, then a police officer. He always said if you feel something is wrong, there probably is. So I dialed the non-emergency contact police number. I felt like an idiot, but every time I walked by it bugged me. So I was stuck waiting for over an hour before anyone shows, and honestly, if I hadn't been off the next day, would have been like F it. But I waited, mostly because I can be really a petty SOB, and that's my spot, damn it. The police show, all annoyed because who knows how many "they can't park here" calls they get. They run the license plate though, and then things go crazy. They want my info, want me to contact my manager. Does this lot have cameras? Have I touched the car, etc. Apparently the car is on Amber Alert as the last sighting of a missing person who was a minor, a 15-year-old girl. When they pop the trunk, they find her dead. Mutilated body under a blanket, and the source of the smell. She had gone out with her much older, controlling and insecure boyfriend, but had decided to get out of the relationship. She only made the mistake of getting into the car with him. He drove 3 counties over after torturing her, stuffing her in there and who knows what else, then parked and walked away, left her to die in the trunk. I never learned her time of death, so it haunts me sometimes thinking she might have been saved if I'd made a fuss earlier. So yeah, listen to your gut even if it seems petty. Something weird happened to me, more scary in a what could have been kind of way, so not on the same scale as the poor people in the comments. I was 17 years old, male, and walking home from a night out quite drunk and stoned about 2 a.m. I'm in a lonely part of my walk, no people, few cars, just a road and some large shops, a B&Q and a carpet showroom, out-of-town shopping complexes that have since become ubiquitous in the UK. Anyway, in a lay-by about 15 feet away is a silver car pulled up, lights on. As I stumble past, 2 men step out and call me over. Something about the situation immediately sobers me up. I keep walking and one of them shouts, "It's fine, we are the police. We will drive you home." I stop for a moment and reply with some smart arse comment along the lines of how police would never do this and that they were dodgy. Calling them dodgy always sticks in my mind. He insists I'm too drunk and it's not safe for a young man like me and I should let them take me home. I say no, and he then tells me to come over here and listen to the police radio in the car to prove they are real police. It's weird, the guy is almost begging me. Desperation in his voice. I repeat a firm no, tell them I'm fine and keep walking. Minute I'm out of sight, I run as fast as I can and don't relax until the 30 minutes later I'm home. I can only assume they didn't manhandle me into the car because there was the very occasional taxi driving past. I'm 45 now and occasionally think about how that could have ended for me. None of the scenarios seem good. A lot of weird things have happened in my life, to be honest. I have met a lot of strange people, and here's a story involving some of those. I will start by saying that I don't remember a lot of what I'm about to tell you, because I was only between 4 to 5 years old when it all went down, but my parents have filled in the gaps. My mother knew a lot about the family I'm about to tell you about, so she's told me a lot. Let's get into it. When I was 4, my mom and dad were friends with a married couple. I do remember that the woman had the same name as my mother, which I thought was pretty funny back then. The couple had 2 children. a boy the same age as me and a girl around the same age as my older sister. Naturally, that resulted in our parents deciding that the boy and I were going to be besties whether we wanted it or not. My sister actually got along very well with their daughter, and they became good friends. For me, however, it was a different story. This boy scared me. The only things I really remember of him was him breaking my toys every time they were at our place. He would rip the limbs off my Barbies and take out the fillings of my plushies. I was always in tears, picking up the pieces of my broken toys after they had left our house. I don't remember what my parents ever said or did about it. I only remember feeling dismissed when I told them about it, and they kept forcing me to invite him to my room every time they came to visit. I also remember lending him my favorite My Little Pony movie I had on VHS, and it was never seen again. I was so sad about it, but my parents didn't seem to care much, and eventually they just forgot about me ever having let him borrow the movie. My mother would usually sit in the kitchen with the boy's mother and talk, and they never wanted me around. I couldn't seek comfort. The woman would even laugh at me and say to my mom right in front of me, "What a weird daughter you have," and my mom wouldn't even defend me. That's a moment I will never forget, because that's the first of many times in my life I was being bullied. That woman was probably the reason why her son was so violent and acting out all the time. My parents have told me in later years that she was an absolute psycho in their opinion. She scared her son all the time and was really mean to him. For example, she liked to joke about putting him in the oven and cooking him for dinner. She even said, "I will raise the temperature so you'll die quickly," and laughed at him while he cried in horror. Why my mom wanted to spend so much time with her, I will never understand, but my mother has always had a tendency to make friends that like to manipulate and control her to the point she's too scared of them to even defend herself or her own kids against them. It has happened more than once over the years. I will never forget that pit in my stomach that appeared every time I heard the doorbell ring and that boy came rushing in, ready to make my day a living hell. One time he had brought a doctor's kit that he had gotten from his parents. Imagine the dread spreading throughout my body as he gave me a big smile and said, "We're gonna play doctor today. You'll be the patient." I think that was the first time in my life I literally thought I was gonna die. I realize now that he couldn't possibly have killed me with a bunch of plastic toys, but back then I was terrified. In my head, I was certain he was going to do the same thing to me as he had done to my poor toys. He asked me to lay down on my bed as he opened the kit. My heart was racing, but to my surprise, he was actually gentle. For once, he acted like any other kid, pretending to listen to my heartbeats, took my temperature and gave me flu shots, etc. That was the only time I remember not having anything to cry about after they had left. Trigger warning. Skip this next paragraph if you're sensitive to animal abuse. Then we have the animals. Those of you who are interested in true crime will know that most serial killers start with animals. This kid was as close to a psychopath as you get without actually turning into a serial killer, as far as I know of. Mom told me about all these things because this is all stuff I either never knew about or don't remember. The family had a cat and none of them had seen it for a few days. It was an outdoor cat, so it wasn't that uncommon that it was out for a day or two. But they were starting to worry. The mother asked the boy if he had seen the cat. He said no. It took around 2 weeks before one of the parents went out to the shed they had in their backyard. There they found the cat, starved to death. It turned out that the boy had actually locked the cat in there on purpose and pretended he had no idea where it was. Another time when he was at our place, my mother had some newly hatched chickens and ducklings in the basement from eggs she had incubated herself down there. The boy and I had asked if we were allowed to go down there and look at them. She gave us permission. After we had been down there for a while, she went downstairs to check on us. When she came down the stairs, she gasped in horror as she saw the boy standing there, throwing the fragile little chickens against the concrete floor, attempting to hit the water bowl as if they were nothing but toys. She never let him near any of our pets again. I'm sure there were more incidents involving animals, but these are the incidents I remember having been told about. Now to what I think and hope was the last straw for my parents. The boy and I were outside on a hot summer day, playing in the backyard. Our parents had a pleasant conversation further away. This is one of those things I don't remember at all, so I'm only going off of what my parents have told me. The boy had gone investigating and found a pair of hedge cutters. Not the electric ones, but the classic ones that look like giant scissors. He sneaked up behind me and my focus was on something else entirely, so I didn't notice him at all. His father looked our way, just as the boy had placed the cutters on each side of my neck, ready to make the cut. His father screamed, "Stop," and ran towards us, literally kicking his son to the ground to save me. I don't think I ever grasped what had happened at all. After this, the boy and his father spent an hour and a half inside a little playhouse we had. That's how long it took for the boy to utter the words, "I'm sorry," because he refused to see that trying to cut someone's head off with hedge cutters is wrong. Like I said, I hope this was my parents' last straw. I don't remember if the family visited us again after that incident, since I don't even remember the incident itself. All I remember is the relief of eventually never having to see that kid again. I'm pretty sure he's part of why I became a victim of bullying for years to come, thanks to me being afraid of everyone around me and acting weird around people. As far as I know, he's living a normal life today with a girlfriend around 30 minutes from where I live. My mom has seen him a few times over the years, and she says he's become such a quiet and charming young man. She thinks I should meet him someday to see that he's not like he was back then, and maybe that would help me get over the trauma he caused. I just told her, no thanks. I don't feel like becoming his first murder victim. I hope I never see him again. When I was 18, I lived in a suburb of southeast Melbourne, Australia, Noble Park. Our house was the odd one out. On a street of 70s/80s brick homes, ours was an Alpine-style weatherboard home with a steep roof built in the early 20th century. It was old, cold, and noisy, and you could see the ground through the gaps in the floorboards. We had a big dog who stayed outside until everyone was home, and then slept outside in a big pen/doghouse at night, mostly in the summer. We also have an indoor cat. The week it happened, I was home alone. Dad was overseas. Mom and sis were visiting family. What happened? One night when walking home from work, I rounded the corner and noticed a figure standing on our carport roof, looking through a window into one of 3 upstairs bedrooms. The sun was setting, so all I could see was a dark silhouette. I yelled at it from the top of the driveway and it was gone. I remember thinking it odd that my dog didn't bark or notice anything. I went inside, checked the house, the dog, the windows and doors, etc., and everything seemed in place. I assumed I had just seen a shadow from a nearby tree at sunset. The following night, I walked home from work and everything seemed normal. I checked all windows and doors, let the dog inside for the evening, and eventually put him and myself to bed. My bedroom was upstairs, down the hall from the room next to the carport roof. Before bed, I had a routine of shutting all doors in the house, as they were all squeaky, and the drafts would often blow them closed if left open. This night, I closed all doors, checked locks, turned off all the lights, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by something. Not sure what, but when I came to, focused my eyes and looked around, I saw the hallway light coming in under my door. I thought I turned it off, but perhaps I forgot. Right then, my doorknob started rattling, like someone was struggling to open the door. I immediately lay back down on my side, facing the wall opposite my bed, and my heart starts beating hard. I hear the door open and close my eyes. I figured if someone is breaking in, I'll pretend I'm asleep and maybe they'll take what they want and leave. I slowly open one eye, the one against the pillow so it's less obvious. I see the light from the hallway on my wall. My bedroom door is fully open. My heart is beating harder. I lay still, I see the digital clock on my CD player and a little after 2 o'clock a.m. Then, I hear the door creak again and watch as the light on the wall slowly starts to disappear. The bedroom door is closing. At this point, I'm positive we're being robbed, but I continue to pretend I'm asleep. Keeping one eye open, everything is heightened. The loudest noise is my heartbeat, but I try to listen through it and can't hear anything. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. At this point, I begin to feel pressure around both my feet. The blanket is getting tighter around them, and I realize that something is now sitting on the end of my bed. I look at the clock again, and it's now a little before 3 o'clock a.m. I'm frozen, scared, and have no idea what's happening. At some point, I have the idea to slowly readjust my position in bed and move my feet a little to see if something moves or happens. So, I do this, but as I slowly readjust my feet, I feel one of them hit something solid. Something is definitely sitting on the end of my bed. I don't know what to do at this point, so I stay still and listen, while looking through one eye at the clock and the bedroom wall. The next thing I remember is hearing the first birds starting to chirp before sunrise. I look at the clock, and it's now a little before 6 o'clock a.m., and I notice the room is a little brighter. The sun is coming. Shortly after this, I feel the pressure lift from the end of the bed. I hear the bedroom door open. I see the light from the hallway on the wall again, and then the door shuts and the sun starts to rise. I got up shortly after this and checked the whole house. All doors and windows were locked. The dog had slept through the night and nothing from the house was missing. My cat was stuck in the bathroom overnight. He must have followed my in when I brushed my teeth without my noticing. I'm not sure what happened, but I won't forget that night in Noble Park. My parents got married while still in high school. I wouldn't recommend this. The 12th grade to be exact. They were legal adults. I came just a year later when my mom was 19 and my dad was 20. We lived in a one-bedroom upstairs apartment in a crappy complex. I slept in my crib until I started climbing out of it and finding my way into my parents' bed or into trouble. When I was 4, my parents decided I needed my own room, so they upgraded to a 2-bedroom downstairs apartment in the same complex. They fought horribly all the time, but outside of that, everything was pretty normal. I made a few friends with other children around the complex, and a cousin and her 3 kids also lived in the complex. Everything was fine until a new neighbor moved in next door when I was 6. Immediately, this lady didn't like me and she didn't hide it. I was at school when she moved in, but on the weekends when I went out to ride my big wheel bike and play, she stood in her door and glared at me with the most hateful look a person could give a child. To be honest, I didn't like her either. Something about her bothered my spirit greatly, though at the time I didn't understand why. It's like she could sense my presence outside and would literally spawn outdoors just to glare daggers at me and mutter things under her breath. I felt an evil presence on her and started making a cross with my fingers whenever I saw her. This enraged her and she lied and told my mom that I threw her a middle finger. My mom believed me instead. Strange things started happening in my room at night. I had a rocking horse. It was beautiful and I enjoyed playing on it. However, it started rocking on its own whenever I tried to sleep. My parents heard this as the springs made a distinctive noise. I had one of those dolls that eyes open and close depending on if it's lying down or sitting up. The doll's eyes would sometimes remain open while lying down, or it would blink, scaring the crap out of me. There would be strange knocking noises in my wall. My parents heard this as well, and they permitted me to sleep with them in bed. One day my mom and I got locked out of our apartment. This was before everyone had cell phones, 90s, and our cousin wasn't home. My mom, against my pleas, knocked on the neighbor's door to use her phone. She let us in, glaring at me the entire time. I never let go of Mom's hand or came from behind her leg. In her house, on her wall, were multiple upside-down crosses. Strange-looking masks, some with horns. There were candles everywhere and small, colorful bottles with powder in them. My mom looked around like WTF, but kept her composure. She held my hand tighter, made the phone call to my dad at his job to hurry back now, and we quickly exited the apartment after thanking the woman. She watched me as we left. My mom told my dad everything, and he told his father, my grandfather, who was a pastor. He immediately brought us a bottle of prayed over olive oil, holy oil, to anoint our house. My mom also told her side of the family, who were very strict Christians, and they were, for a lack of a better word, flabbergasted, and started a prayer meeting. A few days later, we noticed at our back door a white powder substance across the threshold. My mom poured some of the oil on it, and it absorbed it and disappeared. The woman later tried to offer me some candy, which I declined, though I loved sweets. My nickname was Sugar Ant because I loved junk so much. I had made friends with a little girl in the complex that lived on the other side. One day she had some soft chews and offered me one. Like an idiot, I accepted and ate it. It didn't take long before I fell violently ill. Fever, sweating, skin darkened, dark circles around the eyes. Nothing given to me at the doctors helped. I couldn't keep anything down. On intuition, my mom asked, did I accept and eat anything from anyone, and I confessed to accepting candy from a friend. She asked around and found out the girl was the granddaughter of our next-door neighbor. My dad called over my grandfather and my mom her family. They anointed me with holy oil and made a prayer circle around me and started speaking in tongues. I was in and out of consciousness. My grandfather lifted me up and made me drink some of the oil. I remember it burning my throat. Suddenly I had to throw up. I leaped from the couch where I was laying and sprinted to the bathroom, where I started throwing up a thick, black sludge. A lot came out. My mom was shaking and on the verge of tears. Everyone continued praying in tongues. I threw up for a while until it was all out. I suddenly felt a lot better. I was fussed at for accepting food from strangers, even friends. The adults talked while I rested. After a few days, the woman saw that I was fine. This time I glared at her back as I was angry. I was young, but I understood she had tried to poison me for no reason. I made the cross sign again with my fingers, and she went back in her house and slammed her door. She moved out some time after that. Something weird happened to me. More scary in a what could have been kind of way, so not on the same scale as the poor people in the comments. I was 17 years old, male, and walking home from a night out quite drunk and stoned about 2 a.m. I'm in a lonely part of my walk, no people, few cars, just a road and some large shops, a B&Q and a carpet showroom, out-of-town shopping complexes that have since become ubiquitous in the UK. Anyway, in a lay-by about 15 feet away is a silver car pulled up, lights on. As I stumble past, two men step out and call me over. Something about the situation immediately sobers me up. I keep walking and one of them shouts, "It's fine, we are the police. We will drive you home." I stop for a moment and reply with some smart arse comment along the lines of how police would never do this and that they were dodgy. Calling them dodgy always sticks in my mind. He insists I'm too drunk and it's not safe for a young man like me and I should let them take me home. I say no, and he then tells me to come over here and listen to the police radio in the car to prove they are real police. It's weird, the guy is almost begging me. Desperation in his voice. I repeat a firm no, tell them I'm fine and keep walking. Minute I'm out of sight, I run as fast as I can and don't relax until the 30 minutes later I'm home. I can only assume they didn't manhandle me into the car because there was the very occasional taxi driving past. I'm 45 now and occasionally think about how that could have ended for me. None of the scenarios seem good. I was about 4 or 5 years old and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I preferred to sleep in her bed whenever I was staying with her. Our 2 bedrooms were at the end of a hallway, directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the 1st floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, and my mom had a window open her room, which was directly behind the bed, above the headboard. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the door frame of my mom's room. Her door was open and you could partially see into my bedroom. This was strange because our cat was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned to face my mom and wake her up. In the 3/4 seconds it took her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, we both looked back up in the door frame and there was a man standing by my open door, making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor and it was maybe a 3-foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed and we were able to start screaming for help and someone called 911. The police came but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe the man must have exited that way. The strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door that night with the deadbolt and chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up our water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The police were called again, but all they could do was speculate that the man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep.